In this video, I modeled the Honey Badger Assault Rifle by Q. This is my complete workflow for a hero asset in-game. I use a program called PureRef, which is basically a mood board, where you can paste any images you find. I used to not go too intense on the reference images in this part, but I've learned that you have to have reference images, good ones, and a lot of them from many different angles. One of the courses I watched, a guy said you're only as good as your reference image, and I've never forgot that. And ever since I've heard that, that's actually helped a lot with my models. I look on YouTube a lot at like taking apart weapons. There's a lot of videos like that where there's just a guy who's just taking apart a weapon. So I just snap screenshots constantly through watching those videos, and also it helps with texturing because those guns are used, they're dirty, and it's perfect for when you need to texture the gun or any model. When I start modeling, I very quickly get a rough idea of the dimensions of each part of the gun. I make a very quick block out. I know a lot of people spend a while on the block out and make it quite detailed, but how I work is I just jump straight to the mid poly after the block out. So I get all the dimensions perfect, and once I've done that, I just straight away just go and model the gun. I don't go with the details straight away, just getting the shape, which is still the block out, but I basically do the mid poly. That's how I work. So I have a lot of different plugins for Blender just to speed up my workflow a lot. A lot of the courses that I've seen, they just don't have any plugins and they do things quite manually and tediously. They're still better than me, but they could be better and they could be quicker with these plugins. So I use Box Cutter, Hard Ops, Machine Tools, and Power Save. So when I model, I just try and keep the topology relatively clean. It doesn't really matter. It only matters when I move on to the low poly because I just remesh the whole thing for the high poly. So I normally go crazy on the detail just so that I get the most detail out of the high poly. You can always remove vertices, so it doesn't really matter. So once I'm done with the low poly, I move on to the high poly. This is where it actually gets quite fun. I really enjoy this process. So I make sure my mesh has completely good tries. I then sharpen all of the hard edges, and then I export it to ZBrush. And because I sharpened all the hard edges, I don't have to do anything in ZBrush. All I have to do is just Dynamesh it. Now the mesh is going to have millions of polygons, which is pretty good if you want to paint over it. But also when you export it out of ZBrush, you can decimate it, which will solve that issue. You can do this in Blender. I've done it before. I don't think it's good. I mean, it works, but ZBrush is made for this kind of topology. It can handle millions and millions of polygons with ease, compared to Blender, which will crash and you will lose work. On my high poly, you can see the Q logo is indented into the high poly. And the way I did this was actually quite useful, I think, because it used AI, and it's not using AI in a bad way. I think this is the best way you can possibly use AI for modeling and art and whatever. So what I did was I took an image of the Q Honey Badger lower receiver, I put it into ChatGPT, and I told ChatGPT to generate an alpha mask of that shape. So for example, this is what's underneath the handguard, this M-looking thing. So what I did was I took a screenshot of this and I put it into ChatGPT and told it to generate an alpha mask. Now it didn't work the first couple times, and you have to specify to generate an image, and eventually it gives a pretty good result. And after all of that, you decimate it and then you bring it back into Blender, which leads us now to the low poly. For this hero asset, which is for like a AAA game first person weapon, so it's going to be right in front of the player, you want to aim for around about 15 to 35k triangles. So this is actually quite a satisfying process because you just want to bring that number way down. And the trick here is to just remove as many unnecessary verts as possible. You're going to have a lot of edge loops that just don't do anything. You're going to have way too many vertices on that bevel. You just got to bring that way down, and it's going to be a lot more than you think. And once you've got it down to a good amount, then you can start working on UV unwrapping. And what's very important is to make sure that your sharp edges, so any hard edges, are marked as sharp and that they're going to have a seam on them. That's going to make it so that you will have less issues in the bake later on. I start my UVs in Blender and then I move to RizomUV. When I first discovered this software, it was amazing. It is so good. You have so much control and the packing options are amazing. It really packs your UVs tight and maximizes texture space usage. Ideally, you want to aim for around 65% or higher texture space usage. And also make sure your texture sets match the final export resolution you will be using. For baking, I use Marmoset toolbag instead of Substance Painter. It gives you way more control over ray distances and cage settings and fixing baking errors. And once you've baked your meshes, then you pretty much have your gun done. then that just leaves texturing. Normally I texture in Substance Painter, but to be honest, I'm not as good as I should be. I'm still improving. I'm still trying to learn realistic texturing skills. I think that is very difficult. I'm okay at it, but I'm not happy enough to show it in this video. And I'm gonna be honest, I was really burnt out after making this gun. So if you want a full texturing breakdown, just leave a comment or let me know, whatever. I'll make it in the next video. But that was my whole workflow for creating a digital game-ready weapon. I know that there is a lot of softwares here that are really expensive. I have tried other methods which are cheaper and sometimes free, but this is what I found to be the best workflow for maximum control and maximum results. I hope this video was useful in some way. Let me know if you have any feedback or questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.